Hello guys, and welcome back to Room Lasagne. Our next speaker of today is going to be Domen Kožar, more or less. And he's going to show us some tools for a successful project development.
So, hi everyone. I hope you had a good lunch. Before we start, I just want to quickly ask you, what's the first thing that comes to your mind that you want to hear about this talk? Just like the first topic or association. What do you expect from the talk? Okay, but if someone didn't, what would you expect? Inspiration for writing new tools. Okay. Anyone else? Sorry?
Frameworks.
Okay, frameworks, IDEs, yeah.
Python.
Python, okay. We'll touch that. Anything else? Version control, okay. Yes. Oh. Okay. Yeah, so as you can see, it's a pretty wide topic, and I'll try to present the tools that I use every day with Python and that make my life easier. So first, a little bit about me. I am a telecommunications student in Ljubljana, and I do mostly Python and also JavaScript, if you ask kindly. I'm a web developer. Tried pretty much every web framework there is in Python, at least the bigger ones, and I'm an active member of Cyberpeople Hackerspace, which is also located in Ljubljana. And yeah, the last line is just, I don't do just Python, so. So this talk is about opinionated best practices. Kenneth Rice did pythonguide.org. How many of you know the pythonguide.org? Okay, so that's the reason why I'm doing this talk. So the idea is, there's always these best practices. My friend always said that, common knowledge, this is the information that everyone knows except you. And, that's what he's trying to put on there. And some of the parts that I'm going to talk about is already there, and some of the parts, I have still to contribute. So first, the sacred environment that every developer has. I use Python 2.7, Vim. There is my Vim configuration. The whole folder has all the configuration I use with Vim. Git and NixOS Linux distribution. Just to quickly say about NixOS, I've been a long time Gentoo developer, and I'm also like Debian and Ubuntu, but like NixOS is the best way to describe it is if you know like Puppet and similar systems, when you declaratively describe the Linux system, NixOS is the same thing. It's the distribution that you describe the state of your Linux environment, and Puppet controls another distribution, and NixOS is the distribution that it works in a way that you describe the state. If you're not willing to spend time with your Linux distribution, then just don't try it, because it's not hard as Gentoo, but it's also not like something like Ubuntu. So the first tool I want to talk about is FLAKES, basically static analysis of your code. It's basically a combination of PyFlakes and PEP8. So PyFlakes detects stuff like imports that are not used, variables that are not used. If you override a variable, it will warn you, and so on. And PEP8 is, Google it, and it's basically a specification how a good code should look like in Python. So you just pip install it and run it against a directory, and you get a report of the problems. So, but sooner or later, maybe you don't agree with all the stuff that it checks. So there is in setup.cfg. So the standard packaging tools in Python, you can specify which errors to ignore, and I just put comments beside, so like actually I can remember which, because I'm not good. I don't remember that good numbers, and so it's better for documentation. And inline, you can just do a comment, no QA, and it will not raise an error. So the bonus is, if you can integrate it into your editor, in order to, for example, if you make a syntax error and you save a file, it will warn you like instantly, and you don't have to go to your terminal and rerun your web server or whatever. So just sparing some time. The second tool I want to talk about is SPHINX. Who uses SPHINX for documentation? Okay, so basically SPHINX is the standard tool for documentation nowadays in Python. It's really easy to use. Pip install SPHINX and then SPHINX quick start, and you get like an interactive session of something like 10 questions. How do you want to structure the documentation? And you can start writing it in restructured text, which is a well-used formatting tool for documentation in Python community. And then you can generate HTML documentation or PDF, and I think about 10 more formats like manual pages and so on. Also EPUB. So one thing that I notice a lot is when people start writing documentation, it's really useful if you think about the outline, how the outline of documentation is going to be, and especially like why another tool, why you wrote another tool, and then think about the audience that you're writing documentation. So most of the time for me, that's like the users and then the developers, how they like extend the tool or so on. And then the API and the changelog. So one thing that happens a lot of time is over your project, you need to use the version of your project, and then you hard code it in multiple locations, and then when you release, you forget to update all the locations. So what I do is I specify the version in the setup.py, and then just use the setup tools to get the version. And this is, for example, useful for SPHINX, where you have to, in the config file, specify the version name. And sometimes it's a good practice to put like your package name dot underscore version underscore, and that you can also assign it like this. And of course, I'm obsessed with automation, and I think you should be also. So Readerdocs is a free hosting platform for documentation. And if you use, for example, GitHub, it has automatic pushes. It pushes every time you push to GitHub, it will build your documentation. So that's really convenient for that. So moving on, some testing tools. There's quite some of them. Unit test 2 is basically the next generation of the unit test model. It's in Python 2.7, it's already included. And 2.6 and lower, you have to just install it and do like a try except thing. So if someone uses 2.6, it will pick the unit test 2. It has some nice features. Basically, I use it mostly because of the old unit test had the problem that you could only like set up and tear down stuff before and after the test, and now you can do it on the class level. So before all the tests are run in a class, or before the whole module runs, you can like do the setup stuff. And another tool is mock. So when you write unit tests, sooner or later you need to abstract away some stuff. And as far as I know, there are basically two ways. One is to write stubs, some kind of dummy objects that are just really dummy and just return values that you expect. And the other way, the other option is to actually mocks, meaning that you change the behavior of some stuff in your code that you don't want to test. Then of course you need to run the test somehow, and that's where nose kicks in. So basically, nose has a lot of options how we want to run the test and how we want to find the test and so on. And then we have coverage to see the code coverage of your package. Travis, CI, Jenkins. This is basically automating your testing suite. We'll talk about it later. And WebTest is it's for testing WSGI applications. So as I said, Nose is again pretty easy to install and use. And these are basically the common things I always enable. So basically run the coverage, cover my package. And I wrote also a patch for nose test that you can say, you know, minimum percentage of code coverage should be 100 if you want to go really like, if you want to really go crazy on your, you know, contributors. There is also the doc test, so it will also run the doc tests. And one thing that's useful is the PDB and PDB failures switch. So if there is a test failing, it will go into the PDB session, and you can inspect that. Actually, what I always stumble upon is like I do nose test PDB and then it fails, and then I'm like, why didn't you go into the PDB? So if there is an error in test, you need to specify the PDB flag. If there is an actual test failure, meaning you assert something and it's not correct, then you need to also do the PDB failures flag. So I think it should be merged, but you know, that's legacy. So sooner or later you start repeating those flags, and you use the setup.cfg, and you can specify all the flags inside the nose test section for repeatability. And this is another well, really small plugin that I wrote. Well, in util world, you can just write unit test, and everything, you have the test at your whole application. But you know, in real life, you really need to write function tests, and normally those take time. And you know, running the whole test suite for half an hour is really not really useful. And well, so I wrote a plugin that will just match the module name or the class name or the test name. So you can say nose -t foobar, and it will all just run the tests that have foobar in the name. So to spare some time. So again, you want to automate your tests, and I would recommend basically two options. One is Travis CI. It's basically a SaaS, so it's a hosted service. How many of you use Travis? Let's see that first. Okay, about 10. So basically, for every commit, for every push, for every branch, it will run your test suite. And this is basically the config file that you have to set up. So you say language Python, you specify which versions you want to test, and then you specify the install script. It's just a bash script that will generate, and the script, which is basically the testing part. So I will explain how the last two work in my projects. And you commit this file to your Git repository. You go to Travis. You sign in with your GitHub account. You click you enable the repository test. You just click enable on your repository name, and it will just start running those tests for every commit. And what's really convenient is when someone does a pull request, it will run the test for that, and in GitHub will, for example, display if the test failed or not. And they also have a private plan, which is not cheap. I think it's $120 per month. But you know, if you think about it hard, how much time that spares, I think it's a good idea to have that. And an alternate tool is Jenkins, which is more complex, but you know, you have to set it up. Like it's Java, so you have to know a little bit how to set up Java and so on and so on. So this is really convenient. So there is another site that is pretty useful. It's kind of like buggy, but I think it goes into the right direction. It's COVERALLS. So this will like keep a history of your test coverage through time. And basically in Travis, you just say like after success, basically after the tests run, just run the COVERALLS command, and that will upload to this external service your coverage, and you can have a history of your test coverage. And the last the testing tool is the WebTest. So this is obviously web related. So what it does is functional or black box testing for WYSIWYG applications. There is a Django package, and the Zope test browser, for example, for the Plum people, it uses in the background WebTest. We just had a sprint in Paris, so it's Python 3 compatible, and it has one So the testing framework tool has now 100% coverage, which is kind of should be that way. So you use it, and basically you get the WYSIWYG application, and then you wrap it with the test app, and then you have like the app.get, app.post, and so on, and you can pass the parameters, somewhat similar to the request library. And then you have on the response a lot of convenient functions like must contain or the like you can click the forms and fill in the forms and so on. So if you don't need to test the JavaScript, it's kind of nice to do the user stories and so on. There is also backend, so it runs in Phantom.js, so it actually also renders the JavaScript and so on. And it, for example, it has response2.html is basically a response wrapped in a beautiful soup object, and you have like response2.lxml and response.json and so on. So really convenient stuff for testing WYSIWYG applications. So next tool. BPYTHON is actually, I have to say that I don't use it that much, but I'm really trying to put it everywhere where I can, because I will show later a demo just quickly how it works. It's kind of like IPython but different. So I prefer BPYTHON because it's much more simple to use, and it has the minimal feature set that I need when I'm in the interpreter inspecting. Most of the time in PDB session, so there is like the import bpdb, and it will open. It will go into the debugger with BPython. So you can also normally hook that up into your favorite framework, shell or whatever. So you don't have to do it yourself. And I don't know if there is a way to do it with nose. So yeah, that's something that we have to look into. So nose can also support BPython when you do like nose test --pdb. And again, it's convenient to install and to run. So now a little bit of packaging tips. I don't want to explain the whole packaging because we will all get depressed. But just a few little things that I think are nice. So the setup tools or distribute support the extras. So you can actually have like extra dependencies that are not installed by default. And I use normally two sections. One is like the test, which are the testing tools, and development, which are like help you with development stuff. We'll take a look at development tools later. So what you do then is in setup.cfg you create an alias dev, which is basically runs Python setup.py develop, and then is install my package name and those two extras packages. This is basically the best thing you can do to automate this. This is a trick that Chris, the author of Pyramid, has in the packages, and I think it's really nice. So yeah, that's it. And one thing I'd like to emphasize, like Makefiles, I think like often I see like shell scripts and fabric and so on, and I think that people are forgetting that Makefiles are really simple to use. Basically, Makefile is, I would say it's like a very minimal functional language. So in the beginning, let me explain what's going on here. So in the beginning, you can like define the variables, and these like the sections are basically targets. So if, for example, BPYTHON is a target, and what Makefile does, if BPYTHON doesn't exist, it will run those commands in the section. So if you do make, it will create a virtual environment and then install the package with all the development dependencies. And when you run it again, because BPYTHON exists, it will not run that part again. Then there are two other sections which are nose test and FLAKE8. These are a bit different because at the top you see the .phony, and that basically says these are the sections that targets do not search for that file name that exists. So it will not search for node tests, and FLAKE8 file name, it will just always run that section. So if you do make all, it will basically first time run Python and then the other two, and then the second time just nose test and FLAKE8. And the test is just basically an alias for the nose test and FLAKE8 targets. So this way you can build and really complex stuff, but for something like this, I think it's a nice way to put it in your package. So yeah, Zest Releaser. This is, if I want you to remember one tool from this talk, this is the tool. So what it does, it's a really nice, elegant way to release software to PyPy or other. You can also it also like do the SSH copies and so on. It supports quite a lot of things, so I'm not going to go into details. It supports not just Git, but also Mercurial and Subversion and so on. Later, I'm going to show you how that works in practice. But basically, you install Zest Releaser, and then what Zest Releaser does, it has like 3 stages. One is pre-release, and release, and post-release. And you can write your own scripts that hook into that process. And that's what check manifest does. And what it does is before you release, it will like display, these are the files that are not in your manifest.in file, and are you really sure that you don't want to put them in, because what happens a lot of time is you release to PyPy, and then the manifest.in doesn't include like which files to include into the tarball, and then people get a non-working basically release, and it's good to avoid that, to prevent that, and that's what the check manifest add-on does. So this is kind of like the rundown of things that it does in a chronological order, and we'll see that when I show the demo. So this is Mr. Bob. Mr. Bob is a tool that does scaffolding. So you probably know paster create command or Django start project. Me and Tom Lazar on Plum conference we were like talking how these tools are really not perfect and how we should do it again. And so we wrote during the sprints this tool. Well, maybe I should go first. Why another tool? So what's different is that, for example, to paster it has Python 3 support. It's really minimalistic. Now it's 200, 300 lines if you exclude the tests. It uses config file for the questions. So how does, for those that don't know the scaffolding tools, basically it will ask you some questions, like what's your name and what's the name of the package and so on. And then it will generate like a folder structure of files. So paster, for example, you need to write Python code to define those questions. And in Mr. Bob, you just have an ini file and you say question is this, and validate it like that and so on. Another cool thing is, for example, paster only works with X, and Mr. Bob can also render from folders. So basically, you don't even need to know Python to use that tool. You just say the template is there, and it will find a mrbob.ini file and ask the questions, and then generate the folder structure. And you can also specify a HTTP link to a zip file and so on. And the last reason is basically the main one. So paster uses Genshi, which is a quite old templating engine, but it works really well. But the problem is when you for example render build-out files, you have to escape the $signs and so on, and it's just really annoying when you have to go through all that all the time. So what we did is take a Jinja and change the way that you do templates, because in Jinja you have like the 2 curly braces and then something, a variable and 2 curly braces at the end. And we changed that into 3 so it doesn't conflict with all the other stuff. And you can write another renderer if you want. So going back, this is basically how you run it. Just Mr. Bob and then minus output directory, which is a project name. Foobar or whatever, and then the path to the template. In this example, it's a path to an egg, like Bob templates.electric, and then the path inside that egg where the template lies. And then it will go through the question and generate that structure for you. Okay. So all the tools that I showed now are Python 3 compatible, and because I know you write tests, because I know you write automated tests, there is very little reasons that you shouldn't write Python 3 compatible code. Well, that's not entirely true, but most of the time it's not that much work. And what I do is I use the SPHINX library, basically like a layer between Python 2 and Python 3. So those things that are different, it provides an API that works in Python 2 and 3 at the same time. So yeah, now a demo of that. Live demos are always fun, so let's see. So what we're going to do is generate basically a very simple Python package. We'll call it just, I don't know, foobar EuroPython. And then pass the template, which is located in a folder, bobtemplates.electric and blah, blah, blah. So it will go through that questions and, you know, ask you for the actual Python module name, and we'll just do it like this. And then actual name that will appear on the PyPy, and we'll just do the same. Description, we'll leave it there. Version, it will also, you can also specify the defaults and just press enter to lose that default. And you can also say which question is required or not. So we're just gonna go through that, and well, this is not my laptop, so I have no idea how to find a Mac, but doesn't really matter. It's okay. Just yeah.
You good?
Yeah, it's okay. Yeah. Okay. So and what my template does is also asks you for Python 3 support, and it will add some stuff like the Travis. Will run all the stuff on Python 3, Python 3.2 and 3.3, and this will generate then the directory for the new package, and basically most of the tools that I said are already in here. So for example, the setup.cfg has this aliases configured, and the FLAKE8 ignoring stuff, and so on. So let's try make and see if this works. So this is basically, I think it's almost the same Makefile that I showed before. So it basically checks for BPYTHON. It doesn't exist, so it's created a virtual environment. Now it's installing all the dependencies, and we hope that the network is not going to leave us down. And then it will also run the tests, which, well, we don't have any yet, but hopefully when you start developing you are ready to go to run the test suite. Yeah, quite some stuff. Yeah. So the Makefile went through, and it runs 0 tests and runs the FLAKE8, and there are no errors. So this is, let me show you quickly how the questions look like. So basically it's simple as this. You just say a name, which is not important what you give, it's just an identifier, and then question, is it required, what's the default value, and so on. And then in the template you just say, I don't know, setup.cfg.bob, and it will know that when it renders, it will put all those variables inside that package, and you can render that stuff in your file. So for example, like this, this is like like I said, the Jinja templating stuff. So I think that basically everything here. Well, one thing I can show you is BPYTHON just quickly. Come on. I think I have it in the other directory already. Come on. How do I open a new terminal? Just. Yeah. So that should work. Okay. So basically, it has like the auto completion, and so you can say, us.path, and then I don't know, dir name. So it will also, like, when you autocomplete, it will also show you the arguments and the documentation for that function and so on. We'll just one of the cool things is, like, you can do a session and then save it to a file. So you don't. Often you just play around something in the interpreter and then you want to save that, and you can just do like save, and you have stuff like remove last 3 lines from history, because if you change something you can like rewind and so on. Lots of interesting stuff. So I think that's the demo part. So, well, before I finish, I just wanna. This is, yeah, you could say it's a tool. It's more like a platform. GitTip. Who knows about GitTip? Okay, so basically it's a platform where you can sponsor someone on a weekly basis, and the people that are in the community that you respect and you know what of their work, you can contribute like $1 per week, and well, they'll be thankful. So yeah, that's it.
That was really amazing. Are there any questions?
One tool that I didn't notice you mention that is very helpful when you are trying to test your package against multiple Python versions is talks. Are you aware of it?
Yeah. So yeah, I'm aware of it. And basically, you define in which versions you can run the test locally. But what I do is I just run those locally, and then let the Travis handle all the testing. And when I break, I don't know, Python 3, I go back and fix it. Yeah.
You can think of talks like having a local instance of Travis.
Yeah.
It's basically the same idea.
Yeah.
And another comment, there's a different tool called dtox that runs talks tests in parallel, which is invaluable.
Yeah, that's something I learned last week, so maybe I should now start using talks finally. Yeah, thank you.
Hello, thanks for your great talk. You talked about Syntactic. Have you tried Kuno, which is an equivalent? It has the very nice effect of not blocking on each line. At least a year ago when I was using Syntactic, each line you add, it runs FLAKES again, and it blocks your Vim for a few milliseconds or so. With Kuno, it does that in parallel, so you don't feel it. I recommend it.
Cool, I'll check it out. I don't.
KHHUNO.
Okay, cool, thank you.
Is there any particular tool that you would advise to use for writing code tests, like, for example, measuring the performance of your application?
Yeah, well, I did that once and really not like, it was just basically a test what to use, and there is FuncLoad. But I think the Mozilla team is now writing some tool. I don't know how far is that, but if you Google Mozilla Tarek and find his GitHub, there is code. I don't know how complete is that, but basically the FuncLoad I would suggest for that. Yeah. It will like load. It will like run the stress test for every commit, and then it will like also show you graphs of history, like did the next commit improve performance or decrease, and so on.
Actually, for the Mozilla tool, there is two. There is one called Marto that will use FuncLoad to distribute load tests, and there is another one that is called Loads that will use the cloud to start up instances and do the load test using Amazon, Rackspace, or OpenStack.
Cool.
And you spoke about Syntastic for Vim, but if some people using Sublime Text, they can use Sublime Liner. And for Emacs, there is also FlyMax that will help you to run Flake 8 every time you update your code.
Yeah, thank you.
I actually have a question. When speaking about automated tests, one thing I usually try to do is, for example, I don't know how much you do it, is test-driven development. So I write my test before and then I sort of re-implement it, right?
Okay.
And what I'm looking for is an interesting tool that would run my tests, or at least the failing tests, on every file change or something like this. Would you suggest me anything?
Well, basically what I would do is there's a lot of tools that will watch for events on the file system. And then you can specify which command to run when it changes.
Do you know any of them, or would you recommend?
There's many. I don't know anything, but there's.
I'll just Google it.
It's just yeah, exactly.
Oh, 1 second.
To answer your question, PyTest has a plugin that does this. It's in the main PyTest documentation. I don't remember the name. But if you read that, yeah, you'll find it.
There's also a GoRun, G-O-R-U-N, and you can just tell it what to do on each file change in a folder.
Yeah, PyTest is better because it only reruns the failed tests. Yeah. And if everything is okay, then it runs the full test suite again.
All right. Thank you very much.